What do Nikki Haley voters do now?
Well, they are going to have to listen to what she said today. And she said, and this was a message to Donald Trump, he will have to earn their support. He will have to win them over. And we saw that a number of Republicans who were voting in the primaries for Haley were doing it actively because they did not want him to be returning to the Republican ticket, or even more so to the White House.
Well, even those who one would have thought might not want to see him return for a second term, those who have been critical of him now seem to be falling in line after Haley's departure, one of them being the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who after January 6th called Trump practically and morally responsible for what happened at the Capitol. And yet today he endorses him and he says he's the Republican nominee. Of course, he has my support.
We've been wondering whether he would actually go ahead and make the endorsement of Trump. The two men have never really had a great relationship, even going all the way back to 2015 when Trump came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower. I remember him coming into this office and expressing some chagrin during a roundtable with editors and reporters about Trump's predilection for tweets and for, just sowing a little bit of chaos. He was joking about it at the time, but behind the joke was a more serious concern about where the party was heading with Trump in the White House. And the break became official, as you said, Kayleigh, after January 6, 2021. The two men had not spoken since. It was interesting, the timing of McConnell's announcement, 20 minutes after Nikki Haley finished speaking. So in a way that really closed the book on one phase of the Republican Party and opened a new book, a new phase of the story for the GOP.
Absolutely. Mike Shepard, thank you so much for joining us. And now we also have to point out that last night's primaries were not just at the presidential level, they also set the stage for several key congressional races. And on that note, we want to bring in Bloomberg's Julie Fine, our Texas bureau chief. And Julie, Texas was just one of the states we were watching for these races that show up down the ballot, including that key Senate race in which Ted Cruz is going to face a challenger.
He is going to face a challenger, Congressman Colin Allred. Now, Ted Cruz, big base here in Texas, but Beto O'Rourke did come within 3 points in 2018 against Senator Cruz. Democrats pinning their hopes on Colin Allred. He's a former NFL star. Then he was an attorney. Then he worked in the Obama administration. So, they have very high hopes for him. But again, you're looking at the state of Texas, where it is very difficult. No Democrat has won statewide office since the mid-1990s. Both of them are going to have to raise a lot of money in this race.
Indeed, it could be one of the most expensive in the country. Then again, we turn to California. Julie, what can you tell us about Adam Schiff's plan to elevate a Republican to be his challenger?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what he did. He wanted Steve Garvey to be his challenger. Now he is. He's counting on Democrats to come home. That's really what his plan was all along. It'll be interesting to see if Garvey can get some type of following in a very blue state. But that was Schiff's plan. He did not want to face another Democrat. He got his wish.
Of course, Schiff is currently sitting in the House of Representatives. I would imagine he was one of those Democrats who cast a vote tonight to pass a funding package, 6 bills, this first tranche to avoid a partial government shutdown that could have begun after the deadline on Friday. It obviously will now go to the Senate, Julie, but theoretically, the harder fight, the other 6 bills that require passage, could still be ahead. That deadline is March 22nd.
Exactly. I mean, these were the bills that were the easiest to pass. So, again, the can has been kicked down the road. And essentially, a lot of Democrats came through today for the Republican speaker. Now he has to get this done March 22nd. The Republican speaker has to keep a group of conservatives very happy. He has to keep some moderates very happy. Again, now you talk about aid in foreign countries as well. So this part was the easiest part. And again, they're going to have to face this. And nobody wants a shutdown in an election year, but they're going to have to face this again in just a few weeks.
Julie, appreciate your being with us from Texas. Julie Fine, we thank you. Elsewhere, Fed Chair Jay Powell testifying in the House today about inflation and the outlook for rate cuts. Here's what he had to say.
We believe that our policy rate is likely at its peak for this tightening cycle. We want to see a little bit more data so that we can become confident and so that we can take that step of beginning to reduce policy rates. The committee does not expect that it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. When we reach that confidence, the expectation is we will do so sometime this year. We can then begin dialing back the restriction on our policy. If the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year.
Here to help us unpack what we heard today in Washington from Jay Powell's testimony, Michael McKee, Bloomberg economics editor, with us here in Washington. It's good to see you at the table. Michael, did we actually learn anything new today?
Not in that regard. The members of the House who might have been hoping for a new suit got hand-me-downs. This was all stuff that has been said before by Powell, by the Fed, and his colleagues. So in terms of monetary policy, there was nothing new. But I can say something that Mike Shepard can't say. We brought, or Jay Powell, not me, but Jay Powell brought Congress together today.
How about that?
Bipartisan complaints about banking regulation. The banking industry does not like what they call the Basel III endgame rules that would raise the capital requirements for banks, impose another level of regulation on them. And every district has a banker. Every banker lobbies their congressman, and it worked. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats, were critical of these regulations and pushed Powell on them. Now, Powell is not a fan of them either. He would like to dial them back. He said there's a good chance that they might even be scrapped entirely, but he said we're still a long way from putting the regulations out there. They're in the comment period now, and he thinks that there will be major changes made to those. But it was interesting to see that it wasn't just Republicans who'd announced that they would be going after him on the subject, but Democrats joining in as well.
Well, the Democrats in the other chamber that we'll hear from Powell tomorrow, though, may be singing a different tune. Certainly, you'd probably expect that from the senior senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Could we get answers to anything we didn't get answers to today when he's before the Senate?
Probably not. It's not in his interest to give any kind of timetable at this point for when the Fed might be cutting rates. They've made the case they're going to be looking at the data. They want to see further progress on inflation, and so there's no benefit to him for giving anybody any kind of clues that would send the market scrambling in one direction or another. Probably get the same thing on that, and he's already said, I have problems with the banking bill. So this may be probably one of those hearings where the exchanges between angry senators and the chairman, who is always nice and calm and composed, will be what we get mostly out of it.
Jobs Day coming. Of course, we'll be talking to you about that on Friday. What's Jay Powell's next stop on the road when it comes to economic data that will actually influence his view?
Well, they'll be looking at the jobs numbers. They want to see them go down. We had the ADP number today, which Wall Street generally ignores, but it was 140,000. Even that's stronger than the Fed wants to see. We had 353,000 last month. We'll see if that's revised down at all. Right now, the Bloomberg consensus is for 200,000. That still tells them that they have a strong economy, which feeds demand, which slows the process of bringing inflation down. We also get CPI next week. Seems like only yesterday, doesn't it, that we just had a CPI report?
And
now we got another one coming up next week, and that'll also be
Well, we managed
important.
to keep the government open so we can keep producing data here in Washington.
That's true.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.